And we're live.
Here we are.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Painted Lines. We are previewing. We are doing a player preview for the Sixers tonight. This time, our subject of conversation is going to be one of the Sixers' newest additions is going to be Seth Curry. Curry, obviously, as you all know, is acquired in the trade that sent Josh Richardson to Dallas. And but at least in my opinion, guys, that was a win-win for both sides. The Mavericks got a little better with their perimeter defense. Sixers obviously added some much-needed sniper power on the perimeter. And by all accounts, everything seems to be going so far so good for Seth. What have you guys, first impressions of Seth?
So let's go through the numbers real quick. So last season in Dallas, 64 games for Seth Curry, started in 25 of them, put up 12.4 points, 2.3 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 24.6 minutes per game. So obviously, and he shot over 45% from three on around 5 attempts a game, which was good for third best in the league. And so obviously he's going to be, he has a case, for being the best shooter in the league, not named his brother. And so he shot 48.1% on catch and shoot threes on around 3 attempts per game, which is absolutely just outrageous. And beyond just the catch and shoot, I think he's pretty comfortable off the dribble. He can either pull up or on step backs. He shot around 35% on pull-up threes last season. And he's actually a pretty capable ball handler. He actually ranked in the 88th percentile in pick and rolls. Good distributor, makes the correct passes and reads, nothing too fancy about it. And I think he might be a slightly better self-creator than most people give him credit for. And then on defense, nothing overwhelming. He'll just be guarding, ones and twos most of the time. But most importantly, he's probably the best shooter in the Embiid Simmons era to this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Justin, you go next. What do you?
My biggest thing with him coming in here is just 3-point shooting. Like I love that he can do more than that. I love that he can hit the mid range. I love that he can run in with the floaters, and he does have some game around the rim, which is something that I think we sorely miss is somebody who can actually shoot to his degree and also go to the rim. When we had JJ could shoot the hell out of the ball, but when it came to driving, he just wasn't as effective. He didn't do that a lot. So having a guy who can attack both laterally from perimeter and like down towards the basket is just, I think, something the Sixers needed. His perimeter shooting is obviously the most important thing. I think he's going to end up running a lot of DHOs with Embiid throughout the year. I don't know if he'll be as effective as Redick was because that offense was insane. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see how he turns out for the Sixers.
Yeah, so I think it's important to sort of when we talk about Seth Curry, it's going to be a natural thing for not only the people who cover the team and are in the business of it, but are also the fans of the team and the team themselves to some extent. You're naturally going to, I think, use him in the same sentence as JJ Redick, because that's the closest thing resembling that type of player, with in the era of Embiid and Simmons. But I think we have to be really, really careful as to like how we classify Seth Curry and JJ Redick in that same sentence. And what I mean by that is, like, Seth Curry, JJ Redick is tops in the league at creating separation with swift off ball movement, flying around screens, and he's actually so quick around screens that he kind of, in a sense, he almost sort of hides the fact that Embiid really doesn't set screens. He kind of just like sticks his ass out and then goes to the rim, or like looks and kind of like looks to see where the ball is. Seth is maybe not as foot quick as JJ was. He probably has similar similar gravity, although JJ's gravity is pretty incredible. And so I think we have to view him like they're gonna be of equal importance to the team. I think in terms of like providing that shooting prowess. One thing that I think is really, really, really important is that we don't say like oh why isn't why isn't Seth moving the way that that like JJ does. They're going to be used in different ways because Seth can handle the ball. He can create a little bit off the dribble. And it isn't like JJ where it was short spurts of dribbling and then like, okay, we need some sort of action on the perimeter. With Seth, I think you're going to get more like getting downhill and attacking the middle of the lane out of the pick and roll and off of a DHO, not just like 2-step squaring into a jump shot. And but I think they can do a lot of the same things. Would you guys agree?
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was going to say something I noticed mostly, like a lot while watching the tape. And obviously he's a shooter that can shoot it anywhere on the court, wherever he is. But something I noticed a lot that he does is, at least last year, he was very prevalent around the top of the arc, around obviously he was at the corners as well, but at the top of the arc he was killing it from there too. And being that we have guys like Matisse Thybulle, Danny Green, especially Danny Green, who's been a killer from the corners for the past few years of his career, I'm really excited to see having a guy that's going to be able to stand at the top of the arc or at the hash marks, being able to make shots from there, because we haven't had a guy since JJ that can hit consistently from those spots. Even Tobias is at times really, I don't know how to describe it, really not consistent from that spot. So it's interesting to see that, having a guy that's going to be able to knock down shots from those positions on the floor.
Yeah, and when we make the whole Redick comparison, it's not to knock that Curry isn't viable off of DHOs. I mean, just in Dallas's offense, he was mostly running a lot of pick and rolls and sort of doing a lot of catch and shoot stuff. But I mean, I think he was around 78th percentile in handoffs, so he's clearly capable of it. And it'll be interesting to see if they try to pair him with Joel to sort of get that chemistry going. I think that was something they've hinted at this past week. But the whole Redick comparison, I mean, obviously, like Austin pointed out, he doesn't have the same kind of gravity and ability to shoot off movement like JJ does. And frankly, not really many other people have that same ability that JJ does. But
it's like Duncan Robinson and maybe Clay, but that's really about it.
Yeah, but I think he's way better than Redick in pretty much every other aspect of offense. He's a far superior ball handler and playmaker, and I think he's a little bit of a better finisher at the rim, even though obviously he probably isn't the best compared to most other people. And I think most importantly too, he's a more competent defender. It's not to say that he's sort of this all-world defender that at the guard spot, but he's definitely a little more capable in that regard than JJ ever was, because I still have nightmares about JJ getting hunted on defense in the playoffs. But you're not going to get the same action off dribble handoffs like Redick does, but I think he's a lot better in a lot of other regards that are more important to this team, I think.
Sure. And I actually think that Seth is a little underrated around the rim. I think he doesn't have to go there a lot because he is such a good perimeter shooter. But a lot of the tape you see, he's very polished with his floaters and with he does a lot of Euro steps from what I saw on tape. Like he's polished around there. Like he can do it. I just don't think he does it. I don't think he does it a lot because he doesn't have to. Yeah,
I would say he's definitely. When we say he's not that in that Redick role, it doesn't mean that he's not a prolific 3-point shooter. He can be. I think that you're in a sense limiting him to one thing on the court as opposed to what JJ did. Whereas Seth can dribble a little bit. He can create floaters. He can maybe not be so agile and smooth and getting downhill like a guy like Dinwiddie might be able to, but he has the capacity to do that. And where he's a threat from 3 different ranges really. Let's go to Nadir Aga, who's always chiming in. Hi, guys. It's midnight here, and you're missing Jason. Where is he? Jason is unavailable tonight. You will have to do with us. Nadir, I'm sorry.
He has a family to feed.
Yeah. Nadir's upset now. Kiet Lay says, possible to trade for Harden without giving up Simmons with the closest trade package without Simmons. I'm glad someone asked this. This is actually going to be coming up on the next podcast, so stay tuned. 7 o'clock, we are talking about James Harden and James Harden exclusively. I guess that's what we do now, where we're so, I guess, locked into James Harden that even like the slightest bit of tease, and we're ready to have a whole live podcast about him.
I'm refusing to get excited about it. I'm not getting my hopes up for that at all because I don't think it's happening. Frankly,
I'm not getting my hopes up about it either. But I think it's good. I think people are going to be wondering, like that guy was wondering, what trade packages and what is it possible? Is it possible?
I'll let you guys do your thing at 7. But my personal opinion, I think it goes against every single statement that Morey has said about his mentality at this point.
I hear
you. Right, but so you won't be on the next show. So I'll just say it now.
Yeah.
I think that could be sort of part of it. I think that could have been intentional, like very smoke screenish kind of thing. Maybe it brings down the asking price a little bit if you communicate like we're not interested in trading Ben. Big Shane Gillis says 1 week till first preseason. I think everyone is aware, especially with the state of sports in this town. Everyone is aware of that the first preseason game is next week. I'm sure. I am sure that we will not overreact at all to whatever happens.
No, because Philadelphia as a whole is a very rational fan base.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Shane also asks, so how long are Maxey and Scott out? I actually talked to both of them today during their availability. It looks like they will both be hitting the court in the next couple days, maybe even tomorrow. I think we're also going to see, or at least, maybe hear from, at least see some sort of, indication of life from Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson and Vincent Poirier. I have no idea if that's the right way to pronounce it, but we're going to roll with it.
Yeah, I think it's Poirier. I think you were right.
Well, I'll take that victory. But I think we're supposed to see something from them tomorrow. But let's get back to the topic of the conversation. So the Seth Curry player preview. So far, a lot of the indication has been that Seth is going to start. And I think Keith Pompey sort of asked it today, and he kind of said, like, is this a good assumption to make that the starting lineup is going to be Joel, Ben, Tobias, Seth, and Danny Green? And Doc wasn't going to commit to it and give away like game plan, but he was like that's a decent assumption to make. It sounds like a reasonable assumption. So.
And I think that's a lineup that a lot of people were kind of assuming was going to happen. I think the only person that people weren't sure about was Seth Curry and Shake Milton until about a week ago when Doc came out and said that he wants him to run that second offense. And from all the things I'm seeing on Twitter, it's looking like that's what's happening.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah. I think the starting lineup, I think it's going to be a lot of fun seeing Seth Curry out there, because you think about last year going in the first week, our starting lineup was Ben Simmons, we had Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Joel Embiid. You think about the absolute change in the amount of shooting on a team right there, the amount of perimeter shooting we have now, the fact that Tobias is at the 4, you got Danny at the 3, Seth at the 2. It's just going to be it should be, or at least on paper, should be a much more efficient lineup.
Yeah, I think it just kind of makes more sense, and is something that I think it communicates to the most important players on the team. We're we're trying to make life easier for you. And that wasn't the message that was communicated by adding Al Horford. I mean, that was not a good fit
I
for.
mean, I will
No,
say
the message that sent was Joel can't stay healthy, and we are gonna just make the best a move that, I mean, honestly, it still doesn't make sense to me. I mean, why am I even
the only thing
trying to bother?
that made
Why am I
sense
even trying to bother backing up that deal?
the only thing that made sense in my head with that signing was I'm like, okay, if they're having somebody in case Embiid gets hurt, I understand that, but that's too much money. If they're having somebody who can run like the 5 out for Ben Simmons, that makes sense. But Joel Embiid's going to be on the floor for at least like 35 minutes a game, so that still makes no sense with how much money he's getting. So that's the only two things that made sense to me. And other than that, nothing.
But yeah, no, they just make so much sense now, and we've seen it work between Joel and Ben. It's not like, making, trying to figure out trying to make those two work together is like this insane enigma. We've seen it happen, and they're probably, I mean, the whole lineup compared to the 2018 team is just an upgrade, apparently across the board, if you ask me. And we've seen it work across the league with two non-shooters in the starting lineup. We saw Miami get all the way to the finals featuring a lineup with two non-shooters and Jimmy and Bam. So you can't tell me it can't work, and it just makes so much more sense. And it's just so nice to see a Sixers team that has actual cohesion and an actual vision of how they want to play the game.
And I will say, you can always go back to that 2017 team that, and mind you, I think this team is better than that team, but you can look at that and say, okay, you had a decent stretch four in Saric, and you had in Irsan Ilyasova when he came to the team eventually, or Covington if he was playing the four. Like, they had guys that at that spot could shoot. And I think Al Horford can play the four, but not efficiently with how the Sixers need him because Ben Simmons can't shoot, or doesn't shoot, I would say. So I think that is the key here. I think Tobias at the four is going to make such a big difference for this team, because now he even has a little bit less stress on himself, being that last year it was like he was our best three-point shooter, and being that he shot – I don't know what his percentage was, but I can tell you he did not shoot 40% like he did the year before.
Yeah. And also since we're talking about the 2018 team, go check out Brock's video on comparing this year's team to the 2017 team as well.
Good shout out.
For sure.
Good plug.
So I think one thing that we have to discuss also is like what the needs are from Seth Curry. What do the Sixers need from Seth Curry? And I think I would be interested to see what his passing game looks like, because I think in Dallas his role is strictly just space things up so that way Luka has a driving lane and just like get ready for him to drive and kick to you, or at least like make it harder for people to double Luka because they have to guard you. So I wonder, like in on a team where there isn't really as much of a centralized point of command like there was in Dallas, what his role looks like. Does it expand more? Does he become like not really like a pass first guy at all, or not like a facilitator, but maybe there's a little bit of extra skill there that we can, or that they can, milk out of him on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I hinted at it earlier. I mean, he's capable in pick and rolls, which we saw in Dallas. I mean, nothing too, groundbreaking or special, but he's definitely capable of handling the ball and making correct reads and kicking it out to guys, and around the perimeter. He's definitely capable of that. And Doc has already hinted at the fact that they're going to be running a lot more pick and rolls with Ben and Joel. So being that he is a capable pick and roll ball handler, I think you're going to see him run a lot more pick and roll than he probably did in Dallas. But getting back to the whole driving the lane and kicking out, we've harped on it so many times before, but Ben was top 3 in, assists that turned into 3-pointers. And he did that with the spacing that he did last year. Now with Seth Curry and Danny Green and all of them in the fold, I mean, Seth is going to be the recipient of so many of those Ben, driving kick passes that, I mean, his catch and shoot numbers should, pretty much match up to what Seth did this past year in Dallas. So obviously he'll be running more pick and rolls, with the offense that Doc wants to roll out right now. but he's going to get so many of those kick out passes from Ben to just, gun him from deep.
Yeah, for sure. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think his role is going to be bigger on this team than it was with the Mavericks, because the Mavericks, like you said, he was kind of more of a catch and shoot guy than anything else. And yes, he did handle the ball, but it wasn't at a very high clip. I think he's going to handle the ball a little bit more in that starting lineup if he is in there, just because I think they're going to want to have Ben running more off ball in the half court. Because from what you saw at practices, or from what you heard about practice, is that Ben has been practicing a lot from being in the corner and having timely cuts to the rim. And so I think that's going to obviously be very helpful for the team in general. And I think person who's probably going to have the ball in their hands at that point would either be Joel when he's down in the post, or having Steph Curry running a pick and roll with Joel like that, and having Green or whoever it is in the corner. So I think he's going to definitely have some more ball handling. And I think it's also going to depend on if Shake ends up running that backup point guard for the year. Because I think if they figure that Shake isn't exactly what they want running that backup point guard, I think they're going to try Seth there. And I think then he's going to have a lot more responsibility running pick and rolls with Dwight Howard on the bench.
Yeah, and I think I think with a guy like Dwight Howard, you might see a really expansive role for Seth, because he doesn't have any kind of outside game, Dwight Howard. So you're going to want to keep bodies off of him, especially with his history of back injuries. And I think, you're going to try to implement as many shooters around Dwight and basically find a way to sort of get the closest thing to that magic 4-out 1-in offense that they had. Mm-hmm. And, I think we are going to see, that surround them with shooters idea come to life in a sense. Like, finally it's gonna come alive.
Wow, it's almost like we've been talking about this for 3 years since Ben Simmons and Joel hit the court together, and then every single year they're like, no, we need defense around them.
The catch is this: it ends up being for Dwight Howard instead of anybody else.
They end up running that lineup that first take throughout the other week, which was just asinine with
oh my god,
Dwight at the 4.
I could not they're just doing that to piss people off, and I was just like, how? Like, why did they even put that there? Come on,
it wasn't even a good joke.
No, it wasn't.
Nadir says, I have a bad feeling that the starting lineup, it will cause riots in Philadelphia. And Mr. Krell knows what I mean. I hate when people call me Mr. Krell. It's very I feel like it's just like my name is Austin. Like, Mr. Krell feels like kind of.
Here's the thing. You don't have your name on your tag right there. You just have NBA Krell. So what are they gonna do?
Yeah, Mr. NBA Krell.
Shut up, rookie. Okay, I don't need that. I tell you, I know what Nadir's talking about. I have a very strong sense that Furkan Korkmaz is not starting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the people of Turkey that listen to this podcast. If Furkan Korkmaz is starting for you, you have bigger problems.
Yeah, he ain't starting now.
He'll probably be either the starting or the shooting guard off the bench, or the small forward off the bench, depending on how Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle are brought into the mix.
Or Brokoff too. I mean, I don't know how big a role Brokoff will have, but he'll be vying for that spot that Furkan is.
And then Nadir says Ben has to step up. There is no excuse as long as the shooters do their job. Shooting 39 to 42%. The responsibility to bring success lies on Ben and JoJo. I love the logic of like oh yeah, like, you guys got to start Furkan. He's great, but then Ben Simmons is the one that has to step up. like Ben hasn't been doing his job. We gotta be careful with him. But Furkan's great. Furkan can go.
Yeah, the guy
who was that close 16. To saying that Ben needs to shoot threes. He was that close.
Well, yeah, I thought that was interesting yesterday because I asked the question and it was unprompted that Ben said corner threes, lane threes, which I guess means above the break essentially, and just mid-range jump shots. And I was like, well, I didn't say hey, jump shot question. He could have said anything he wanted to, and he said that. So I thought that was very telling of maybe where his mind is. I guess we'll know when he pulls up for that first three of the year, and And
again, it's not a necessity for him to do it, especially with the spacing that he has now. But if he adds that to his game, then he is on track to reaching the potential that we all thought that he possibly could reach.
Wouldn't it be just ridiculous if Ben ends up shooting like 40% from three?
First take would have nothing to talk about.
Oh my God!
like if Ben ends up shooting like 40% from three on like 3 attempts per game, would be just like people would know what to do.
Kevin O'Connor will still be making the case that he's shooting with the wrong hand.
He would probably be the best player in basketball if he was doing that. He probably would.
But he'd be damn good.
Maybe not this year, but I'm saying like with his size, with his defensive ability, with his passing, ball handling, everything, you got if he's shooting 40%, you have everything. Like that's everything.
I think Sixers Twitter would just turn into an aneurysm because it's like a big generalized aneurysm. There would be no Sixers Twitter, we'd all be dead.
Because the world ends the day that happens.
Yep. Now Brock Landis says, "Don't ignore me, Krell. I know you see me, Brock. I do see you. I acknowledge you, my co-host. Brock is one of a kind, truly one of the best in the business of what we do. You should give him a follow. This is definitely deviated from a Seth Curry podcast.
That's true. Let's get back.
Brock. Keep us on topic. Ask a question.
You're right. So just getting back to Seth Curry, I think the one thing that he has sort of stood out to me about his availability is that he said like, hey, don't corner me into this like I'm a sniper role. That isn't my game. I can do much more than that. And so I'm intrigued to see what that looks like. Now, one thing that I do think that it would be interesting to see is what does that percentage look like on higher volume? Because I think what Seth is going to have is probably the highest volume of his career. I mean, if you think about it, people are penciling him in to be a starter from day one. And this is for a guy that was by all means, a role player, second unit guy, to add depth throughout the remainder of his career. So the fact that he's now, warranting or summoning starter minutes means he's going to play a pretty significant role. And I just wonder what that looks like in terms of volume of 3-point shots. Like if he's shooting 6 or 7 a game, which I think would be hard considering that JJ was taking like 6 per game or 7 per game at his height. Does that percentage get down to 38? Is he a great shooter is he a great 3-point shooter on a volume of like 4 per game? What does that look like? And I also wonder what that looks like if with lesser screeners and guys of that variety.
So if we're talking he's going to be in the starting lineup, it's obviously safe to assume that he'd be going well over 30 minutes a game, versus in Dallas when he was putting up, going around 24 minutes a game. So, and being that he's probably going to be shooting, well, he's going to have a bigger offensive load on this team. And when your usage goes up, naturally your efficiency goes down no matter if you're putting up the insane, shooting numbers that Seth was putting up this past year. So I don't think it'll decline so much to the point where people are, rioting and saying that we should have kept Josh Richardson. But I think it's fair to say that if he's going to be playing around a little over 30 minutes a game, and he took around 5 threes this year. If he's shooting like, we're talking between 6-7 threes a game. If he's shooting at like around 42% from 3, then I think you take that any day of the week.
Right.
I also think that he has a chance to still be taken around that 5 mark for threes, just because we do have added shooting at other positions now. Being that we have Danny Green, being that we have guys like Tobias at the 4, I think they are going to take those shots as well. They're going to I think it's going to take some pressure off him, because I think what we're thinking right now is it's JJ Redick. We're thinking of the numbers that JJ Redick had when Jimmy was on the team, when we had Tobias running the 4, and it was a different team. Jimmy didn't take threes. Tobias was running the 4, yes, so he was taking them. But now we have Green. Tease is on the team. He's going to be taking threes, hopefully. It's just Shake Milton. Like there's other guys that are going to be able to take those shots now. It's not just him.
So, say we're assuming that he's going to be taking on the JJ role as sort of the main 3-point threat and and that's his main focus. So JJ, when he was here in Philly, over those 2 seasons, he took 7.3 threes a game.
When he wasn't
JJ was
when he wasn't not calling the police over human trafficking, he was.
that story doesn't get talked about enough. His second season in Philly, he averaged 8 3-point attempts a game. So, do we assume? Now, I don't think Seth will be taking nearly as high number of threes as 8. I would say, but I think it'd be fair to say like 6.5. I guess 6.5 a game would be a good over/under to set for him if he's going to be having that big of a role. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I think that's very possible. I don't think he's going to be shooting those 8 threes that JJ did. He's way more versatile than JJ is when it comes to that, and so I don't think he's going to just be shooting threes. I think you'll see probably around that 5 to 6 mark. I mean, if he's shooting more than that, to me, that means that like either Shake, Tobias, like Danny Green are either not shooting well or that they just are being asked to shoot less than their averages, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Let's get some more questions here. Sidall, Andrew, LOL. Why does Krell hate Ferk so much? What he's getting paid? He's overperforming expectations. Streaky guy you can play when he's hot. Intelligent basketball fan sees he's slow and bad at D. I agree. I don't hate him. I just think that like he isn't this like rotational piece that some people think he is. Howard Yammer McYam bags. Howard asking can gaggle my yams.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
He hasn't been getting the first question lately, which is surprising.
Yeah. I've been getting it. It's been pretty crazy. So as far as
you're the new Howard.
Maybe. As far as numbers go, what are we looking for from Seth? What it would be a disappointment? What would be a good or great year?
What did he average last year? Didn't he average around like 12? I think it was, right?
Yeah,
12.4.
Yeah.
So he averages 12.
I'll let you guys go first, then I'll give you mine.
Can I go first, Joe?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. I think he's going to average more just purely based on usage. Kind of like how we talked about it on the Shake Milton podcast the other day, because he's going to be getting more minutes than he did last year if he's going to be starting. I think you're probably going to see him go around that like 15, 16 mark just because he's going to have more shots. And if he's shooting at same percentages that he has been, I think naturally it's going to go up. I also think because he's going to be so prolific in the starting lineup and because Joel Embiid just commands so much defense, he's going to get a lot of open looks, and Joel is one of the best bigs in the league when it comes to being down in the post and passing out to people. So, yeah, I think he's going to average probably around the 15 to like that marker. If he's averaging more than that, I'm even more happy.
Yeah, so I think he'll be averaging more than he did in Dallas too. But at the same time, he's still probably going to be getting fourth fiddle behind Joel, Ben, and Tobias if he's in the starting lineup. So I want to go as far as to say like 15, 16. I'm probably thinking like if he's putting up 14 points, like around 3 assists, because if he's going to be running more pick and rolls, obviously you can see his assist numbers go up. And like around 2 boards a game and a little over 30 minutes a game. I feel like that you'd really have to be digging to find something to complain about there.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but my only thing is, like I said, I can understand if why you don't think he'll average a little bit more, like that, like what I was saying. My thing is just we got if Ben is being more aggressive on offense, and Joel already being as aggressive as he is. it's going to create a lot of open looks for the shooters that are on the outside, like Shake, like Seth, like Danny, like anybody. So I just think he's going to average more just based on that.
No, I totally agree.
Austin, you're muted. Come on, Krell.
All right.
You're the hardest, man. You got to be on this.
Here's where I am. So I think Seth is probably looking at 5 or 6 attempts per game. So I think that. My guess would be that he's probably attempting around 13 field goals per game. So I think that translates to like 14 to 16 points per game. And I think, that's going to mimic like a set, like a JJ Redick light. But I think Redick was also a guy that you had to use a lot more because you didn't have someone like Tobias Harris as your number 3. So, I mean, there's less shots to go around than there were with JJ. And as a result, I think less, naturally less opportunities. But I think you're looking at something like 14, 15 points per game, 5 or 6 3-point attempts per game. I think a disappointment would be if Seth is at like 36, 37%. And I know that sounds ridiculous because it's pretty good.
Which has a higher chance of happening than people think because it's Philly. But I don't think it'll
I actually disagree with that. I disagree with that. I think if Brett Brown was here and we didn't have all the players, if we did not have all the players that we do right now when it comes to spacing, I think yes, I can understand. If he came in here kind of like how JJ did his first year and was just like, hey, shoot a shit ton of 3-pointers, like, yes, I can understand that mindset. But I really do think that he's going to average up in the like low 40%. Like I really do.
That's the thing. If Brett was here, it'd be probably a different story. But new coach, so probably different expectations if it was Brett here, obviously.
But I still think, I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to have any effect, but I mean, number one, son-in-law. So I think like you're like there's in some element there's going to be like a little bit of higher usage, just because like the guy better, you trust him, like you trust him as a person, you trust him as a player. You're going to be my guess would be that Doc probably has spent way more time with Seth Curry than he has with any other player on this team. I think, he's probably talked about basketball with him a lot more than he has with anybody else, because when you're getting to know the person that's going to be marrying your daughter, you're going to want to look for commonalities, and basketball is probably a pretty glaring commonality for them.
They're fluent in basketball, so obviously that's the one thing they're going to bond over.
Right. So I think there's naturally going to be an element of trust there that might lead to playing an advantage for Seth to some extent. But I also just think like he's the marksman. He's like far and away their best shooter. Like he's going to be their best shooter.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. And we'll see. But I just think the amount of attention he's going to command, there's going to be times when you implement Seth more, because like if things are really slowing up and the offense is like slog and it's like nothing, you can't get anything going. There's going to be times where you try to implement more actions around Seth, because that the attention that he's going to command is ultimately going to open up things for stars like Joel, like Ben, like Tobias. And sometimes for those guys, all you need is just to see one go down, or to get one and one, to get just get to the free throw line a little bit, to get those guys to get going again. So I think he plays a role in that sense. But I think another thing you got to expect from him is probably tip-top conditioning. I think he's naturally a little slower than JJ is, but I mean, right off the rebound, it's going to be sprint to that arc, and just get ready to catch and shoot. Because then with the ball in transition, I mean, you know what your job is. But I think anything where it's like we get to the point where he's shooting the ball and you're not you're not 100% confident it's going in, it's going to be kind of a disappointment. Like with JJ, you always thought there was a very good chance the ball is going in, even though he's making like 42%, whatever it is.
Anytime you see a guy like that shoot, you think it's going in. Simple as that. Something that I think as well. I think I said anything like with guys like that, anything you see go up, you think's going in.
Yep.
Right. And so I think like if the open looks, he's going to have to cash in on more often than not. Now, eventually, there's going to be a point where teams figure out a way to defend it, where they neutralize Seth, and then as a result, it kind of closes the court down for Ben and Joel. So there's going to be a point where maybe he has to get a little bit creative or a little bit outside of his comfort zone in order to get his looks. But I think that one-step pump fake that like guys love to do, where it's just like you catch, you're faking, one dribble to the side, boom, shot's already back up. If you can get to a point where you're basically like it's automatic, it's going to pay dividends, because I mean people are going to scramble to try to defend you. They're going to have to try to recover, and eventually that rush is going to lead to a mistake, and then Seth's going to have the decision to make: do I shoot the shot, or do I pass to a wide open Embiid below the basket? So
now that's what I think separates him from a guy like JJ. If you lock in on JJ and you pretty much figure out how to shut him down, there's not really much else that he can do to sort of, attack that. Where what separates Seth is he's shown he's able to sort of handle the ball a little bit and handle in pick and rolls and sort of gain at least a little bit of separation. I'm not saying that he's elite at that, but he's definitely way better at that than a guy like JJ was. So I think that's the key major upgrade over a guy like JJ is in that regard for a guy like Seth Curry.
I would say though for JJ is that there was, if I'm honestly remembering, not a lot of teams are actually able to stop him. Like whenever they found a way to stop him in one way, he was crafty enough usually to either play off his weight or play off the shiftiness of push offs. Honestly, he seemed to be able to be effective no matter what. He could at least get open to get some sort of look, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Now let's look over at the defensive side of the court. For Seth, obviously not as shiny or sparkly as his offensive game, or else the asking price would have been a lot higher. But I think he's a step up from JJ. Obviously quicker. Probably can move a little bit better in terms of staying in front of guys and keeping his hips loose and being agile in that sense. He's still going to be the weak link on the floor, a lot like JJ was, a lot like Shake Milton is. But I think to a lesser extent, especially when in a defense where you're not switching as much, it's going to be harder. I mean, you're still going to try to target him because he's going to be the weak link, but it isn't going to be like you're doomed as soon as he catches the ball. And it isn't like you're going to be doomed as soon as any offensive player. It isn't like Marcus Smart's going to turn into Russell Westbrook or James Harden as soon as he catches the ball against JJ Redick.
Yeah.
I think you have a better chance of minimizing the disparity on defense with a Seth than you could with JJ.
Yeah, but yes, he's going to be the weak link. Obviously, you're just going to put him on opposing guards when you're playing against a different team, and he's not the greatest. He's nothing special. I mean, he's fine on defense, but the thing is, it's not that big of a deal because you have two defensive player of the year candidates in Joel and Ben. Also on his side, you have Danny Green, who is still a very, very competent team defender as well as an individual defender still, no matter how much grief people will give him. And you have Tobias, who I think took a small leap on defense to be at least a little better than he was when he first came to Philly. So it'll cause some problems naturally, but given the state of the starting lineup, I think he'll be fine, and the rest of that lineup will be able to mask that weakness overall.
Considering you can put next to him, you have so many different people that you can put out there to defend with him, like Danny Green, like Matisse. Like if they want to try to put Tyrese out there with him, like there's just so many options to put next to him where you don't necessarily have to have him at the point of attack defending a guard. You can just have him kind of hiding out on the corner with somebody. So it's going to be interesting.
For sure. Last question we're going to get to for this player preview. Jason Joseph asks, the one thing that Sixers still need is a closer. I'm kind of in the middle on that. With the way the roster is constructed right now, can Seth Curry be that guy? I don't know what evidence there is that suggests that Seth Curry is of like a different ilk than Tobias Harris is. Like neither of them were Jimmy Butler, and like I don't know that Seth has the mentality that's closer to that than Tobias is. I think we've become so, I guess, used to them not having any kind of shot creator that anybody that is like remotely capable of putting the ball on the floor and scoring automatically is assumed to be the closer. But it's really just more of a mentality thing than anything. I would say that your closer right now probably looks like Joel Embiid. And I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't matter what position you play. You can be a closer. It's a matter of your skill and your mentality.
An interesting fact with that, not a lot of people know this, but Joel in like I think it's like 2-minute situations in a game is like shoots like 60% from the field. Like he has some crazy stat where he like legitimately is like super effective in end game moments. He's very capable of it. I think the biggest thing that people question with him is the perimeter. Is the fact that we don't have a guard like that. And even Jimmy, when Jimmy was here, he's not some crazy good perimeter scorer. He had a few shots in the perimeter end games where he is that mindset guy. He's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna hit this shot. So I think this year, I think it's going to be a lot of Embiid down in the post, and they're going to surround him with guys like Danny, like Seth at the end of a game. And if he needs to, they're going to put them on his side where he can pass out to him and hit a three. I think that's your closing offense right there.
And I think Tobias is going to be the number 2 guy in that stretch. And then I guess it would be Seth because he's the next guy that can create a shot.
Yeah, and Joel isn't that bad of a guy to have as your closer because there aren't many guys in the league that are capable of going up against him one-on-one down to the low post. So that's why he isn't that bad of a guy to have as your closer, even though most people's perception of a closer is sort of this guard wing who has to take a contested shot, down in the shot clock. But you don't really need that when you have a guy who could just bulldoze over pretty much anyone that's guarding him down low. So, yeah, there's no reason to think that Joel can't be, a viable closer on this team. It doesn't have to be the guy that has to take the shot with a hand in his face.
Right. Well, he is Joey DeProsperos. You can find him on Twitter at JoeyD_6. He's Justin Persecity. Find him on Twitter at J_Persecity. Find me on Twitter at NBA Krell. We all produce content all the time about the NBA, about the Sixers. You can find me on the Sixers beat every day, giving you the quotes that you didn't know you need, but you do need. As always, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back in
like and subscribe.
Approximately 10 minutes with the James Harden Rumors podcast. You don't want to miss that. We'll be taking all your trade proposals, all your questions, all your ideas, and much more coming up soon. And Brian Jacobs, a rare appearance on the pod. He will be showing.
And also there is
he's coming out of his apocalypse bunker for a podcast this time.
Yeah.
Also, Rob is joining as well.
Rob as well. Rob Landry, the voice of the people, will be joining. As always, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a great night. We will see you next time. Another episode of the Player Preview. Be sure to don't go anywhere. Back in 10 minutes talking about James Harden.
Peace.